Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm happy to be back, and I unfortunately am not happy about the topic of today's video, but I really felt like the Lord was leading me to share my story and what happened to me, and I know that it will actually bless someone and it will bless me as I am walking through healing and just walking into getting into a good space. So on April 11th, 2023 of this year, about a month ago, a little over a month ago, I suffered a miscarriage, and it was a very surprising and devastating event that happened the week before I actually had the miscarriage. You just feel something's not right with your body, and I had some chest pain and more tiredness. I already had, the usual symptom of tiredness that you have when you're pregnant, but I was tired, I had the chest pain, and then I was starting to get something new as well, pain in my abdomen area. When I first became pregnant, or when I first had my first ultrasound, that's when I learned that they found a fibroid. And so throughout my pregnancy, I was not expecting the worst, but anticipating that I would have some different steps that will be taken to look after the fibroid. I did some research and learned that because this was my first time learning that I had a fibroid. I never had irregular periods. Everything was pretty much normal and clockwork for me. And so that was my first time hearing of it. And the doctor that I saw that day, she pretty much, was like, has anybody ever told you had this? And so she sent me off somewhere else so that they could take a closer ultrasound and get better measurements and all of that. But that first appointment, everything was perfectly fine with my baby, and they measured the gestational sac, and it was in the right location, and I was measuring just exactly where I was supposed to be at that time. It was about 5 weeks into the pregnancy. And so the hospital that I went to, I chose to do my care with, they rotated the doctors every single month. So I was with a different doctor every month, and that didn't end up being best for me. I would highly recommend that you find an OB and someone that will see you every week, that you'll build a relationship with, an establishment with, and they'll be able to really hear your concerns, and when you voice something, they'll look into it and they'll do everything they can. So anyways, with the news of the fibroid, I was expecting to have an ultrasound every month, because when I was reading about it, and just different things that I saw, just learning that the doctor is not able to properly measure your belly and how you're progressing, how the baby's growing, if you have a fibroid, because the fibroid grows alongside with the baby throughout the pregnancy. And so that was one thing that, I regret, and I feel like should have been done, and that I had to release and just say, I've learned and I'll know better for the next time and move forward. But that's one thing that I would recommend, have one physician, have one doctor, and especially if you do learn that you have something like me, a fibroid, get connected to a place that specializes in it. And, I felt like that they had the knowledge, and, they would just keep saying, everything looks fine, everything's good, and I would be going, about my different appointments, and they did not take now that I look back, I don't feel like they took extra concern to the fibroid. And I don't think that, it was on purpose, that it was their doing, but they weren't the specialists. So, all of my visits were pretty normal. They did look extra close to make sure that I wasn't developing preeclampsia or gestational diabetes. So they did extra tests for me for that. And everything was normal. Everything was fine. And so, that week I was telling you guys I had the chest pain, and me and my husband decided to go into the emergency room. And that was after I had, my monthly appointments. And the last monthly appointment I had before we ended up going into the emergency room, the doctor had a business meeting or some type of meeting he was affiliated with, and only spent 15 minutes with me and completely rushed through the appointment. And so me looking back, I was there, and I was just like, it's fine. He looked at everything, he rushed, and I was trying to be understanding, but looking back at it, like, this is very important. That shouldn't have been done. I should have been given the proper time or had the appointment rescheduled. And so we just really have to advocate for ourselves and speak up for ourselves and just be like 100% on guard and watchful of, our health and over these appointments. So that is one thing that, my positive takeaway is just next time, speak up. Next time, don't be afraid to voice, like, no, I need my full appointment. Like, not 15 minutes. That's great that you have this opportunity, but I also have the opportunity of my baby, and I need you to care, and I need you to look into it. So it was just, working, and I'm working through all of those different feelings now, not blaming anyone. And if I do blame, trying to just work through it healthily, because I don't want to blame anyone. I don't want to blame the doctors. I don't want to blame myself. I don't want to blame God. I want to work through all those things so that they don't continue to fester or continue to grow into something ugly. And so that was that. So had that quick appointment, and then about 7 to 14 days later, we ended up in the emergency room, and they worked up a ton of tests, and unfortunately they did not find anything at this point. And so I went back home, and they said, just follow up with your OB pretty soon, because they couldn't find anything. And I was having, pain, and I was having, pain, chest pain and abdominal pain. So when I followed up with my OB, luckily they could get me in. I think it was the very next day or maybe 2 days after. I can't remember, but so I went in, and I had this OB appointment. I let her know that I was in severe pain, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I rated it about a 7. And I was telling her it was coming in like waves, and she also knew, she was aware of the fibroid, and she recommended, at that time, she didn't do an ultrasound, she didn't look at the fibroid, she didn't look at the baby, but she used a Doppler to listen to the heart rate. And then, the heart rate was normal at this point. And she just said, take Tylenol, and you can use a heating pad for the pain. And at this point, I remember going into the car, calling my mom, and my grandma Fairlene was on the phone too. And I stopped and got gas, and I was talking to them, and I was just crying because I was in such pain, and the Tylenol wasn't working, which I did tell her. Tylenol wasn't working, and I just didn't know like what was going on with me, and that I didn't get any answers. I was expecting to get answers, when I went in, or some type of solution rather. So I went into work in pain, and then came back home. The pain's getting worse and worse. And my husband was on a call for like from 7 o'clock to 7:45. And during that time, I was on the phone with my mom, my sister, and we phoned in my auntie Cynthia, because she has a lot of experience. She had fibroids in her pregnancy, and just to get another perspective. And once I started telling her, at this point, like, I can talk, but it was hard because I was crying, I was in pain, I was like healed over. And she was like, I don't know, Marlinda, I don't know. When I told her it was coming in waves, she didn't say it at that point, but I could tell she was concerned that I was going into preterm labor, that these were contractions. And she's like, y'all just get ready, go back to the emergency room. I suggest don't even tell them anything. Like, it would be best if they just work you up from scratch, because I think she felt that, they weren't doing their diligence, or they weren't able to see like what's really going on, because their eyes were kind of blinded by, what they already have looked at. So she just wanted a fresh set of eyes on it. And so we were planning to do that. But as we walked down to the car, I sat inside of the car, my water broke. And I didn't even know it was my water that broke, but I just sat down, and there was just this gushing of just like clear, warm liquid. And I'm like, oh my God, at this point, I'm petrified. I don't know what this even means. Why is this happening? I'm 4 months pregnant at this time. Well, 15 weeks and 6 days, like almost 4 months. And I'm panicking to a certain extent, but calm. And I'm like, there's no way I'm driving all the way to the hospital I normally go to. Like, to my husband, I'm like, is there a closer hospital? Because I don't know we don't have that much time. Like, we need to get to the closest hospital. He's like, yeah. And he makes a turn for the closest hospital to us, which is University of Chicago. And it's a hospital that he uses. So we go there. I'm wet, and I'm like carrying I have on this maxi dress, and we're walking in, like running in, and there's a ton of people in the waiting area. So I told them what's going on. Like, I need to see someone like right now. I need to get back there right now. And they did. They rushed me back. And they started to work me up and do everything. Long story short, once I got up to the floor, the OB floor, and they admitted me, they did the ultrasound twice. And first the nurse did, and then the doctor came in. She sat with me, and she's like, explained to me very, gently, there's no heartbeat, and the fluid is gone, and pretty much explained to me that my water broke. And we don't know at this point why my water broke, but it had to have been some type of stress that caused my water to break for me to go into labor. So at this point, they gave me and my husband a moment to digest everything, because we're just like, sitting there, and even getting to that place, I just felt the Lord was just with me, directing me, guiding me. There was, when I was in the actual emergency room, they wanted to do an exam over me, and I just had this feeling like, I don't know. And I literally heard the Lord say, like, no, don't let them do it. And politely told him, I would wait until I got up to the floor. And at first he seemed kind of like offended, but then once he called the floor, the OB floor, they're like, no, we want her up here, like, now. So I got to where I was supposed to be, and they just handled me with so much care. These nurses and staff and doctors, residents, supervising physicians, they were absolutely amazing from the beginning to the end. Just so much care, so much compassion, so much love in what they did and how they cared for me. Just every single part of it was intentional. And that's how I could just see God this whole time. I knew he was with me during this time, even though it was horrible. He was definitely with me and working things out and making sure, making sure I knew that he was there. I knew that he was there. And so I went, they would pretty much just talk with me about the different options that I had at this point, of delivering, of having surgery, and being able to see her and hold her was going to be an option if I delivered her. But if we went ahead and just did the surgery, then we would bypass that. So at that point, it was a really hard decision, but just to avoid, it being very traumatic. And I didn't know, like, okay, I have to deliver. They said something about an epidural. And so I just decided to have the surgery at this point. And so the surgery was going to be scheduled for the following day, and it wasn't going to be until, like, I think noon. So they said that there was a probability that I would just, go ahead and deliver her naturally. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm very, very thankful that it happened, because I didn't know at that point, like, would I want to hold her? Could I hold her? That'd be too much trauma. And it wasn't. It was absolutely, perfect. And I wouldn't change anything the way that it happened. So I delivered her pretty easily, and then the placenta did not come out as easy, so I still had to end up having surgery to deliver, or for them to remove the placenta. And once they delivered her, I was able to hold her and see her up close, and like see her facial features, see that she looked like me and my family, and could see like her little nose. And it was just a really precious, sweet moment that we had. And they even had a special team that came up to help create moments, or memorable moments. So they took pictures, and it was really nice. And they also gave some takeaways, some memory little mementos that they gave us to take. So that was nice. And then what happened? So when I went in for the surgery, for them to remove the placenta, we were hoping they would be able to remove it and it would be fully intact, so that they could also test it to see what exactly happened, what caused, my baby to pass away, and for them to have to, and for my water to break and all that. So they weren't able to. The placenta got stuck actually on the fibroid. And I ended up having a postpartum hemorrhage, lost a lot of blood, and it took way longer than they were expecting. Blood pressure dropped and pretty much went into, having some complications. But miraculously, they got it out and stopped the bleeding. And I did not end up needing a blood transfusion or anything. My blood pressure came back up, and they were impressed with, how I turned back around. And at that time, I had people around me and, rallying into prayer. So that was definitely prayer that helped, helped me recover. So thankful for everybody that was there with me and those that were, in different states, but still praying. I'm thankful for you so much. And so after that, it was just, entering into the recovery phase physically. And, that wasn't the tough part. It was really the emotional healing and the emotional walking out of that emotional trauma and everything. The hardest parts for me were just going to the places I used to go, getting in the car, coming back home, going to work, going different places. Without her, I was definitely attached to her. And even my identity was, as a pregnant woman, as a mom. And so I had to kind of shift pretty quick, and I lost her. So that was definitely, I think, where a lot of the instability happened off top, emotional instability. And I really, continued to feel God. And one of the things he showed me was I saw myself really drowning, being engulfed in this water and, losing it. And then I also saw, the opposite of God's hand pulling me out of the water and saving me and being the one to rescue me. And so I went to get a scripture to stand on with that. And let me grab it. Okay, so the scripture is Isaiah 43:2, and it says, "When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you." And so I just began to thank God that he was with me, that he was with me when I went through these deep waters, and he will continue to be with me. And that when I go through rivers of difficulty, I will not drown. And I just began to have to read that every night before I went to sleep, because it was hard to sleep. It was hard to definitely stay asleep. I would wake up just crying and just missing her and feeling that void. And I got to take her baby blanket home with me. And so at that point, like immediately after, I needed to hold the blanket and, just look at the pictures some nights, and just was grieving. It was really hard to lose her like that. And I noticed that when I would journal before I went to bed, that those nights would be better, when I would read at least one scripture, something to help me, that those nights would be better. And so I would try to do that. We made it out to the lake one day as well, me and my husband, because he got to take some time off too, which was nice. And, just being around the calming water and just having a chance to just relax, like those were all great things. So yeah, we walked that out together. Well, another thing that was tough was right after this happened. So this was April 11th, this all started to happen. Our wedding anniversary was April 29th, our 1 year. And I was like, oh no. Because, I just already had it in my mind, she would be with me. I would still be pregnant for our anniversary. And so I had to shift gears and, just continue to adjust. It was just a lot of adjusting, a lot of coming to terms with reality and making peace, and just working through different things. I think the hardest thing for me was just, questioning God, of the why, why did this happen? And I really reached a point where I didn't really have to ask that anymore. And that was, I watched this powerful sermon that the Lord definitely led me to watch. And it was Sarah Jakes Roberts. And she was, at the beginning of the sermon, she was just talking about in Genesis, where we see Adam and Eve, and, in the beginning. And she just really broke down how, God never intended for us to know evil, to see evil, to know sickness, disease. The world that God actually created didn't have any of that. And so there was no blame on God, or even no question to God, because I feel like, the fact that there's evil in this world, it's not any of, God didn't have anything to do with it. And so that just really took a huge weight off of me, and really just allowed me to get close to God again, and really continue to allow his presence to be with me and comfort me and walk through this with me, acknowledge him and all that. So that was good. I noticed I really made a huge stride at that point when I got that understanding. And so that was really good. Mother's Day was hard, but it wasn't hard the day of Mother's Day per se. It was more so like the aftermath of it. I think it was just all of the stimulation of Mother's Day and everything like that. And I think I went through the motions on Mother's Day, but I think it hit me the next day. And I just had to process everything and just continue to trust and lean on God that, he's with me. That's one thing that I've never doubted, or I haven't been able to see. That's one thing that I'm so strong in, is that he will never leave me, and he's been with me, and I know he is gonna, be there with me. I think I'm still for sure needing that hope to be restored in me, the hope of having another child and doing it again, because, right now it's just been a month, so I'm definitely still working through fear and working through being, scared to do it again. So definitely keep me in your prayers about that. And yeah, what else do I want to say? So that's it for now. I will probably be following up with this video. I'm not sure exactly with what, or, the direction, but let me know if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for your prayers already, and thank you for your support, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.